Good morning.
My apologies for being late. I was just looking at the calendar invite.
No worries. We have you, Jeff Kaplan, and Jeffrey LaFrancois here, which I think,
Wait, hey.
Chris Fazio, I think that means we can start the meeting, correct?
Yes, since it's a state of emergency due to the weather, we are going to proceed with having a quorum of 3 based on both Zoom and in person, given it's very hard for people to come to our office today. So you should proceed, and whoever's doing the Zoom should record this if it's not being recorded yet.
It's already being recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Can you do me a favor and forward it to Purnima? For some reason, it's not working on my phone.
And I know Chris heard. Chris, did you hear that? Chris is multitasking, so.
Tell her the Zoom link is in the PDF that's attached to the invitation. It's not in the invitation directly.
Yeah.
Is this yours?
I sent it to both Mira and Purnima.
Thank you. All right, let's start. Kim?
Hi, good morning, everyone. We have finished our auditor financials, and our auditor, Jeff Jones with EFPR, is here to make a presentation to the audit committee. We are required to file these financials by June 30th by the state, along with our investment report and a host of other financial reporting. So we are going to present the summary of the financials to the audit committee today, give you time to ask any questions that you'd like to ask. If you have any concerns, please air them. They can be addressed. And then the draft audit will be finalized and sent to the state on Paris. Jeff, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So my name is Jeff Jones from EFPR. I'm a director here with the firm, and this is my, I believe, 3rd year working with you guys. So I have a presentation that I know Kim sent around yesterday. So I'm actually going to share my screen just to go over, again, this is going to be the summary of the audit itself. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
It's up, we can see it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so the first things to note on here is that the financial statements and reports have been now reviewed by management. Now we do expect to issue unmodified opinion. Now unmodified is the best opinion you can receive. It means there's no material modifications to numbers. There's no modifications to our auditor's report, and there's also no modifications to any of our initial planning procedures. So everything went very smoothly. We noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, also no issues in regards to compliance. The next bullet point talks about your material aspects of the investment report. Now, as Kim mentioned, that's another report we are required to audit, and we noted no non-compliance and no material misstatements there as well. So all good news there. We said your net position as a whole ended up increasing a little over 18 million, now to a little bit over $1 billion as of year end. Now I'm going to go on to the next page while I cover these items just to kind of put some numbers to the words I'm talking about. So this is a summary of your entire statement of net position, which is essentially a balance sheet. Here we saw total assets amounted to about 1.5 million, representing an increase of about 1.1%. Mainly in the area of investments being continued there, which is good to put as much as you can in investments simply because everything has been getting such good returns over the last few years. The next area was your deferred outflows of resources, amounting to a little over $3 million. which is a 13% decrease from the prior year. The main factor in that is the actual assumptions related to the pension system is now when we talk about the pension system, that's the New York State pension system. A lot of people refer to it as ERS. Essentially, each year, New York State has an actuary do a full valuation of the entire state pension system. Then based on each government's participation, number of participants, everything like that in the system, they'll assign you a number. Now, every single government in the state is like this. You get the number and you put it on your books. It has nothing to do with your actual financial performance for the year. There's nothing you can do to really budget for this, plan for it, or affect it. You're essentially just assigned a dollar amount from the state, and that's what you put on. So you'll hear me reference that a few times throughout here. And again, I just want to kind of say it's nothing to do with the trust performance. It's all just an assigned number from the state. Next
But
year
also
is
the liability went down, which is good.
yes. Yep. And I mean, I don't know if you remember a few years ago when the stock market was, kind of everything was flying, you actually had an asset in regards to the pension system. So it's something that varies significantly each year. They basically take into account discount rates, people's estimated mortality, the amount of, age that everyone is in the system. For example, if someone is a brand new 21-year-old person in the system, okay, their projected benefit, like they have a lot of time to accrue and to get benefits versus someone who, let's say, gets hired when they're, 45, 50, there's gonna be less time for them to earn those benefits. So they'll take into account all those items. So yeah, overall, we did see a drop there.
Just to give you an idea of the variability of that funding level of the New York State pension system, this year they're at 94% funded level. Last year they were at 91, and the year before that they were 104%. So it really, really varies a lot.
Exactly.
And every year we make the entire actuarially required contribution.
Yep, exactly. And that's the only thing that you really have to do with it. You enroll people in it, and then they send you an invoice based on that. And that's really the only contributions you have towards the system. And outside of that, they just essentially assign you a number each year. And that's about all you can do for it.
And I will also say that as a state funded system, New York's system is very well funded, really at the top of the 50 states.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the fact that, as you mentioned, it's actually exceeded 100%. So a lot of governments a few years ago actually had an asset on their books due to the pension system, which is almost kind of funny to think about. It's like, all right, we have a pension that eventually is going to have to get paid out, but we have an asset associated with it. And it's just, how the plan is performing itself. So next there is your liabilities. They came to a little over $41 million, which represents about an 8% decrease. That's mainly, there's general decreases in majority of the categories. Your accounts payable, there wasn't as much outstanding at the end of the year. Same with accrued expenses, that pension liability going down. And then those were offset in part by your OPEB going up. Now, OPEB is similar to your pension, except for it more takes into account its full valuation usually done every other year. And with that, they still take into account discount rates, mortality rates get updated each year because it's all post-employment based. So, again, if it rechecks your employee count and let's say it went up a few people, then your liability is going to increase. Or if the general population of your staff is a little bit younger, then that's going to be, a little bit more expensive, simply based on, various calculations and those actual assumptions in there. Your deferred inflows were about 372 million, fairly consistent, went up by 900,000 from the prior year. A lot of that was due to you receiving a payment from Amtrak that's going to be amortized over the next few years. And that's going to be just the use of those because they're taking away the use of the helipads. So they're giving you a payment since you're eventually going to have to lose that revenue as they take away those spaces from you. So they gave that payment in advance there. And then all those combined show then your total net position increasing about $18 million. So the next page is your statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in that position. Some people, again, will call this an income statement. Here's where we'll look at your revenue expenses. Overall, your total revenue was about $75 million, which is about a 28 to 29% decrease from last year. That really is due to two main factors. One is last year received two one-time payments that are not going to be reoccurring, and those were about $17.2 million. And then the rest of it, as a lot of construction was kind of wrapping up, or there was less construction in place this year, the appropriations from the state and the city ended up decreasing in line with those items. And then when we looked at your expenses, we saw the total expenses amount about $56 million, which was a 10-11% increase from last year. And those really have a lot to do with those actual assumptions from pension and OPEB. For example, we saw that the OPEB liability ended up increasing about $3 million from last year. So as a liability increases, an expense is recorded to offset that. So as a lot of those actual assumptions are impacting your statement of position or balance sheet, there's an expense that has to be recorded to offset with those. And then in addition to that, we saw that depreciation also increased almost $3 million from last year. And that's simply as more projects are wrapped up, they come out of our construction in progress bucket and they go into a bucket where they're now in use. And so they begin to get depreciated. As some of the piers are actually being utilized by individuals, residents are actually on them, walking on them, using the facilities, depreciation starts to be recorded in regards to those, which produces a new expense. Now, it's not a cash-based expense, actually spending money, but it's just a depreciable life. Everything is getting depreciated over the depreciable lives. So a true expense, though, to you guys. So
a question on the revenue for 24-25 on that. The lease rev, the 8 million delta there, that was the one time, is that
Yeah.
Chelsea Piers?
That was the transaction.
Okay, and the 8 million on fees and other fees, that's the Amtrak fee. Thank you.
So that was the high level overview that I wanted to go over. And from there, I just kind of wanted to open up to see if anyone had any other questions with the reports.
The Chelsea Piers was a lease, like that, we booked that as lease income?
Yeah, it was a required transaction rent payment.
Okay,
Under
then it was,
the-
I was curious, it was categorized as a rent.
Right,
Because
It was a sale.
it was contractually under the lease that was
Got it.
there already.
that makes sense. No questions from me. Unmodified opinion, that's great.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where I always like to say, everyone there was very helpful, was very, I run into a lot of audits where getting information sometimes feels like pulling teeth. And here, whether it was before we came out, while we were on site, or after the fact, just the flow of information was great. Everyone was very, very easy to work with, especially, especially since COVID, right? Everyone has done so much stuff virtually. And that's something we've been able to utilize here a lot is we have a secure online portal that we use. So a lot of information was able to be provided to us ahead of time. So when we were actually there on site, we already had a great game plan. We had a great foundation for the audit itself. So while we were on site, we were able to be very efficient and get through everything. And, constant communication, whether phone calls, emails, whatever it is. And, everyone there was a pleasure to work with, and we were really able to get everything done in a very smooth, timely manner.
Great to hear.
Wonderful.
Jeff Kaplan, do you have anything that you want to?
Nothing specific on this, but any like public authority changes that you see coming down the horizon? Are we ever going to be able to really invest this money rather than put it just in bonds, or any changes to the OPEB? Just all of the sort of the stuff that I call government related crap. Anything changing good for the good, or for the good or for the bad that you see coming?
Right. I mean, the biggest things are going to be the GASB pronouncements. Now, GASB is essentially an authoritative body that impacts all governments, but since you do fall under New York State, you essentially implement them as New York State implements them. Now, for example, this year you implemented GASB 101, which is in regards to your compensated absences. Thankfully, it didn't have an impact on you. Everything and how you were tracking information was already how they wanted it done. And
I'm sorry, could you say that again? What's GASB 1 in relation to what?
101, so 101.
Yeah, but what is it? You mentioned what it was, I missed it. What's it about?
Compensated absences.
Oh, I
So,
see.
Yeah.
Pay
so
time
things that-
off.
Yes. So basically what they noticed is that a lot of the governments, let's say across the country, were recording it differently. Some people were only recording a pure sick time termination benefit. If someone were to be let go, how much would they get paid? Some people weren't accounting for, well, if they're gonna get paid for this, then they only did that accrued time instead of also thinking about, let's say, FICA, because you're gonna have to pay those FICA on people's time off when they get paid out. And it also took into account maybe a non-cash benefit that someone was going to receive. So it was more just a getting everyone on the same page for it. And it's something you guys had already been recording it properly. So there was actually no impact to you guys, which is why I didn't even really have to bring it up. But as far as then your investments go, thing is you're following New York State and what they want you to invest it in. So that you're kind of limited on your options and what you should be investing in. So, and that's what that investment compliance report is for. We haven't seen anything that's going to change what they allow you to invest in. So at this point in time, I'm gonna say there's not any changes on the horizon that we've seen as far as those go. And then you mentioned OPEB. The biggest thing with that is going to be interest rates, because again, they're looking at your post-employment benefit. So as interest rates go up or down, it's going to impact that number a huge amount, because they think about it as, again, you hire someone who's 21 years old, they have X number of years to kind of pay, whether it be paying, accrue into a system, and then how long they're going to live. And they think about interest rates the same way as if you were to put money into a savings account. If it's earning 4% interest for the next 50 years, this can be a huge number. But if interest rates, in this case, discount rate, were to drop, then you'd only be accruing 3% interest for the next 50 years. So I'd say interest rates are your biggest factor, but that's nothing that is, again, you can control, or that the government, as far as the state is going to change around. So I'd say as interest rates change, those numbers are going to have larger swings from year to year. But
And that, that sensitivity is actually demonstrated in the notes to the financial statement. There
yes,
are changes in interest rates down 1% and up 1%, tested for both OPEB and for just the general funding level of the state pension system, so you can see that volatility. The other thing on the OPEB calculation, not only level of interest rates, but also projected cost changes in costs of healthcare are incorporated in that actuarial valuation there too. So it's even more volatile, I should say, than just the pure funding level of the state. And the other thing, I worked with state public authorities in New York and nationwide for 30 years before I came here. There is no way they're going to change what our permitted investments are right now. We could play around a little bit perhaps with going out a little bit longer, but that will increase pricing volatility. So we've been very, very, very conservative, staying at 5 years and under. And I would say over the last year and a half, 2 years, we actually stayed very, very short, because that was the highest area of the yield curve. But I know we'll be delving more into what our permitted investments are and our investment policies are, but those permitted investments are dictated by state law.
right.
Who makes the actual decisions on our investment allocation? So obviously we're complying with state law and we have to work within those parameters, but do we do that in-house, or who do we work with externally to actually make investment decisions within?
That's PFM. That's PFM is our
PFM.
asset manager, and they in conjunction with us.
So we will be doing a new RFP. We need to select a new manager in the next number of months. So the committees, the finance committee and others will be involved in a philosophical discussion before we issue the RFP.
Yep.
Yeah.
Their contract ends at the end of this calendar year. So the RFP is going to have to go out early this fall.
Right. Is PFM still in the running for the next go around, or are we committed to switching?
The procurement process, unless there is a reason to say that we are dissatisfied, which we currently would not say, they would be eligible to compete in the competitive procurement process.
Got it.
Jeff Jones, I feel like you and I were talking about another GASB that you are tracking for the future that we could be subject to.
So
remembering that.
So the next one's out. There's 102, 103, and 104, which I have in the financial statements, and I'll give you their actual technical name. So number 2 is risk disclosures. 102 is risk disclosures. 103 is financial reporting model improvements. And number 4 is disclosure of capital assets. Essentially, the items for you that really are going to impact you is just what's required to be disclosed. So I know you and I especially were talking about the kind of MD&A, right? And what was required in the MD&A. And that's what these are outlining, because everyone's MD&A is really different right now. I mean, you have a longer one. There's some people that only have a 2 or 3 page one. So that's one of the things they're kind of starting to bring down the pipeline of what's really required in your MD&A. What do you have to talk about in order to just get everyone on the same page? I mean, a lot of these items I think are also just to try to help, especially, I know, maybe you're not able to, issue bonds on your behalf, but a lot of the governments are. So they wanted to be able to truly maybe see additional information or be able to compare government as if they were almost a for-profit entity, right? And get more information about them. So it's more just getting everyone on the same page and also disclosure-based items. So it's nothing for your accounting practice that would change with these upcoming GASBs, just disclosure purposes within your financial statements.
Thank you for the reminder and recap.
Yeah.
Generally, for our MD&A, the trust has long elected to be a little bit more fulsome in our descriptions as part of our continuing effort to explain ourselves to the public.
Right. Speaking of disclosures, who are the primary users of our audited financial statements? So obviously internally as a board and as a management team, we look at different management reporting that actually presents our financials very differently. And that's, I think, what we use as a management tool and as a decision-making tool. So I view audited financial statements as much more of a sort of public facing, that's sort of how you present the organization to the world, but who in our experience are the actual users of our financials, who that, as we think about disclosures and how we talk about and how we adopt this disclosure, some of which are discretionary and others are not, who is this for really?
We do pursue and receive certain grants periodically, and certainly providing the audited financials has been
Is a requirement
as far as that goes. Periodically, as we talk about things like the future Pier 76, and we have discussions with our advisory boards and task forces and other things like that, material, we certainly point to the many years of information on our website, other documents that are there as well, but that it's important for us to be able to show our financial story as we build out the park, as we have more staff to take care of the park, as we have more capital maintenance and other things that are self-funded. So I would say it's a wide spectrum of users.
very helpful. Thank you.
Now you might want to describe the finance plan also.
Yeah, in addition, our statute somewhat uniquely has a requirement every year for a financing plan, which we also put on our website, and that is really more how we're achieving the mission of Hudson River Park with respect to build out and care of the park. So that when you adopt the budget, there is a capital and capital maintenance component of that. We combine that with narrative for purposes of the financing.
Yep.
And the act does not have, unlike an audit, it does not particularly have guidance as far as that goes. So again, we use it in a sort of plain English language way to describe forthcoming projects, status of current projects, forthcoming needs, opportunities, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, our financials look really strong across both the balance sheet and the P&L, so it's a great story.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say,
We vote on this to recommend?
That's what I was gonna say, vote to file and
Sorry.
post the financials per the ABO requirements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yay.
well, I would like to thank Jeff, 3 Jeffs here, or Jeff Jones. Thank you all, but Jeff, you and your team, you know, it's a lot of work. It's also just nice to be able to have a relationship, I think, with our auditors where you actually have evidenced interest in what we're doing and what changes for us from year to year, so that you can have a fuller understanding of how to answer our questions when I'm asking you questions, but also so that I think it gives you insight into being able to answer questions from the board, such as what's coming down the pike and so forth. So I'd like to thank you and your team for showing curiosity in us, as well as obviously for the hard and detailed work of the audit itself. And also just secondary to his staff and Kim and the team for Jeff was very complimentary to me also of the extent of preparedness by our financing team this year for the audit, even notably even better than last year. So congrats to you guys too.
Thank you. And again, thank you for all the hard work. I mean, the only way we get this done is if, there's really teamwork on both sides of the report. So, I think it's the fact that we're out and everything is looking good and everything went so smooth, just testament to everyone's work. So thank you.
Great. Ready to issue.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right.
All right, all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good.